It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design Group. Hey, welcome to the podcast. The regulars, go ahead and introduce yourselves. Now that we have that recorded intro, I never know how to start.
It's great.
Weird.
I love it.
But we have a guest, but I'll introduce the guest after you say hi and introduce yourselves.
I love it. Hi, I'm Els Tahura.
Hi, I'm Chad Jetner.
And I'm Kyle Bacher. And today we're going to talk about comic books and how they've shaped our life. And we have a special guest, a comic book expert and historian.
Mike dear, Turpin. Don't go that far.
Mike Turpin, welcome. It's good to have you here. From what I know, just talking to Al and Chad, you all know more about comic books than I do. You have a deeper knowledge of authors. You've thrown out some sick knowledge of stuff that makes me believe that, yeah. So, I guess my first question, have you all seen Moon Knight?
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
excellent.
Here's the thing. Usually on the morning of either a Star Wars or a Marvel show premiering, Turpin will text me immediately at like 6 a.m. Did you watch it yet? Did you watch it yet? And half the time the answer is actually yes, because him and I are both 12 years old. And we can't delay gratification at all. So we have to see it the minute it comes out.
He knows you're a morning person, I hope. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like that's optional. Like Mike's just like on the ball. Like, have you seen it yet? You should have.
I just have small children who get up early, and if I want to watch it at all in the day, it's early or not at all.
Fair enough.
So yes, Turpin and I know have both watched it. Ellie, did you watch it?
I have watched it, and as of yesterday, I've also seen Morbius. So I feel like I'm caught up on the comic lore.
Yeah, I did not see. I'm waiting for stuff to come out, so I haven't seen Batman or Morbius. I did watch Moon Knight. Don't want to put spoilers out there, but I absolutely loved it. So it blew me away.
I think I saw a meme this morning. I don't usually see memes, but I saw a meme this morning that had Darth Maul extending his lightsaber, right? And on one blade came out and it said, Jared Leto starring in the worst DC movie of all time. And then the other blade comes out and it's Jared Leto starring in the worst Marvel movie of all time.
I mean, there may be a prize for that.
Yeah. I haven't seen it, so I don't know how bad. I know it's got a 15 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh yeah, we can absolutely have a chat after this about the quality of that film.
Okay.
Okay. I see a pattern. It rhymes with Jared Leto. Yeah. So, when did you start reading comics? How old were you?
Mike.
Oh dear. I was actually kind of old for comics themselves. I didn't get into any of those probably until my 20s. It was all the shows, animated, the Spider-Man especially, and kind of all the things off of that. Then I don't know, it all just so blends together as part of the media or the media environment you grow up in. And I was definitely late to the comic books, the physical media though. I always liked video.
Chad, what about you?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh goodness, I can't even, like 5 or 6, right? Like we used to go, we used to buy them from Tom Thumb. Remember when Tom Thumb convenience stores?
I love Tom Thumb. I miss Tom Thumb.
They always had a little rack, and we'd 50 cents each. We'd get 1 or 2, and then we discovered Shinders in Minneapolis. And then we'd go to Shinders, and so it's been forever for me.
And Kyle,
the only thing I remember about Shinders is buying Pogs there.
Pogs.
That's going to have to be another
That's
episode.
a whole nother podcast. A Pogcast. Thank you. I'll be here all week.
Kyle, because you were younger when you got started reading comics too, right?
Yeah, I got started with a set of classic stories that came with an audio tape. So it was, basically reading the comic to you because I couldn't read because I was, a child.
Tiny. Yeah.
And that's kind of really where it started. And then I had friends that had, I bought comics, but then I had friends that had like legit collections. And my brother like traded his stamp collection for some guy's huge comic book collection. So I had all these comics available. Um, my brother didn't care. But my buddy I had to like show him my hands. Like, he like, you got to pull him out of the Mylar a certain way. And so that was a trial. It was hard to read comics at his house, but yeah, I would say, and now I have a Marvel subscription. Last year, I caught up on all of the storylines and comics and, the recent ones. No idea how great they got after the 90s. Yeah, with, the Jason Aaron Thor stuff.
Brilliant.
Yeah, blew me away. Because when I started, it was really basic POW action. On DC, you had the pantheon of godlike heroes, and then in Marvel, you had the, teenage angst heroes, and yeah. So
no, you said
was my start.
earlier you were a little late to it too, right?
Yeah, kind of similar to Mike, around in my 20s when I just have a habit of going to used bookstores and just kind of seeing what I stumble on. And at some point, good 10 years ago or so, I stumbled on a, collected edition of comics, and it was good enough that it got me hooked. And as we've kind of talked about in other podcasts, there can be a tendency in our field of when we like something, we might want to go way too deep into it. So I now have more comics than shelves in my house. So when I got hooked fast and deep.
Yeah. You know what it's hearing about it from you guys, like, so you went into it in your 20s. Turpin got into it through TV first. Kyle got into it through audiobooks. It's weird. I mean, I don't know, that's weird, but your entry into that thing, like, I kind of forgot. Oh yeah, that's right. Spider-Man was a big cartoon in the 90s, right? That's when you're talking about, right, Turpin?
Yep.
Yeah, the 90s era.
Early 90s.
Yeah.
Batman, the animated series.
That too.
Oh, Spider-Man was a cartoon in the 70s.
Well, yes, there's the
80s.
earlier ones. Yeah.
That's the classic song. Spider-Man, he does whatever a spider can. I'm not buying it. Then Spider-Man and his amazing friends with Firestar and Iceman. Yes, so many great cartoons. I love cartoons and animated shows.
So Kyle, when you kind of talk about how you maybe more recently are discovering plots and stories that seem more nuanced to you than the comics you read when you were a kid, but presumably those comics you read when you were young or listened to when you were young influenced you in some way. Do you think so?
Oh yeah. Reality bites. Reality is slow and has chores, and like, just to escape from reality was wonderful. But really, the hero thing, the justice, the code of honor, the struggle to maintain it, like to, stand up for things. And, I kind of like took that on. My brother is like that too. Like, we're the bully stoppers at school, and, just wanting like tech support, like saving the day, wanting to help people out and be a hero. I think that had a lot to do with it. That the struggle of, like maintaining that code, Batman, the later on Batman, not the super early Batman, but the late, like the classic Batman who won't kill people.
Mm.
Like, no matter how many times the Joker escapes and kills people, Batman just won't go there, because he knows if he does, then he can't stop, and it's going to be all over with, and he'll be just like them. Yeah, I just love stories, and in general, in any form, good stories. And I think comic books has become like fantastic in terms of storytelling, the writing quality. So I think it's, it still has appeal for an adult audience. It's not just kid stuff, no matter what people think. So that's kind of my 2 cents. Chad, has comics had any impact on who you are?
Yeah.
Besides being in your background for anyone who's watching the video.
Oh, somebody actually mistook those for actual books. No, those are all comic. I mean, those are collected comic books. But I actually, before this, I went back into our, we got a big closet that's just got shelves and shelves of old comic books. And I pulled out a few because here's one. This is a Fantastic Four episode where they're debating whether or not to kill Hitler. This is, look it up, Fantastic Four number 292. And it is, here's the thing that you guys are missing out on by reading them digitally or, coming to them through collected like this back here, is just the smell. Like these, I have these in a chest and they're on a shelf, and I open the shelf and it's almost like old newspaper smell, kind
Totally.
of. It's not like musty or anything, but like that's what you used to get when you walked into Schindler's, was this exact smell. And so, yeah. The question though you asked was, has it changed me? It got me curious about things earlier. So this one was published in 1984. And so, 9-year-old Chad was, oh, who's this Hitler fella? Why are they so mad at him? Right. And so it's a branching off point for like finding out a lot more about literally everything else. And then kind of a fun little jaunt through the moral dilemmas of should they or shouldn't they. Spoiler alert, they did, but they did. But the entire scenario happened in an old mutant's head. And so Mr. Fantastic pulled him out of the whole situation and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, great story. Highly recommend it. Fantastic Four number 291 and 292 kind of cover the whole arc. So yes, it made me way more curious, and it gave me a lot of starting points to like, oh, okay, this one was basically about Fantastic Four and World War II. And then, so now I dig into that. And then I dig into, Captain America and World War, like it just, it sparks a lot of wonder about different things more than anything. Right. So I don't know, Turpin, you came into it from a totally different side though. So.
Yes, absolutely. No, it was, I'd say more what it did is it opened me up to sci-fi and being comfortable with that genre. Because kind of got me used to thinking outside of, I still think of the Ninja Turtles I was watching as a kid. And the concept of, what is this radioactive, I don't understand. What does that even mean? And what is a sewer? And it just, oh, okay. And now there's these bad guys who run around in the sewers. Okay, well, that's interesting. And they have a giant thing that just runs around. And, oh, now we're going to mutate some animals and turn them into Bebop and Rockstar. Okay, well, all right. And I I had one of those on tape actually. I think they'd converted. So this isn't the original Ninja Turtles. This is more after the, what was it, 88, 89 when I can't remember my years, but the first Ninja Turtles that were out for cartoons, or the main ones for cartoons, and there was one that had been converted to, I think it was kind of their origin story as a comic book, and had it on audio tape too, because like you, couldn't read, Kyle, so I listened to that one a lot. But from that, it was just getting comfortable with making up entire worlds in your head and how it could be completely different from reality, and a lot of it is escapism. Just, oh, that's cool. I didn't even think of doing that. And taking the whole concept of stepping back and going, now what if I went random this direction with a threat? And a lot of comic books seem to do that. So let's take one attribute, change it, and kind of follows into that the What If Marvel comic series. The what if we just change this one aspect of it? How does that change all of the rest of the universe that's in? So, and then you get into the whole fun multiverse theory and how that works. So,
Which I just need to do a side note for anyone who hasn't read the Batman Ninja Turtles crossover series. That is surprisingly good.
I watched the animated.
It's the animated
version.
is pretty faithful, not entirely,
so is it?
but
Okay.
fairly.
I didn't even
faithful.
know that happened.
There's
I've been
crossovers
reading all
everywhere.
Marvel stuff. I need to get
Yeah.
a DC subscription so I can
Ooh,
catch up on those.
Batman Looney Tunes.
I did-
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was like him and Elmer Fudd, right?
Oh, it's so good.
There was like a DC and Looney
Yes.
Tunes team up, and who did Batman team up with? Because every
Elmer Fudd. It was Batman
up-
and Elmer Fudd. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
And
it's
then,
so
like,
good.
Bugs was in there, and Daffy was teamed up with somebody else, and yeah,
But no, I'm kind of with you, Mike, where it absolutely is getting this sense of play and just, okay, there's enough flexibility within a comics universe where you can choose to keep things consistent or like within a same timeline and within the same world as maybe another series. And so there's a challenge in that. How do we make it work with other events that might be going on? But then alternately, you can just have your own little world and just play with the characters in slightly different situations. And I just love that there's that space to play. Like I am just diehard for Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. Absolutely adore that series. And so just the idea, like, yes, a person who has the strength and quote unquote speed of a squirrel goes up against Galactus. How on earth is that going to make any sense? And it's just great. So just that creative problem solving and play is just so much fun.
it feels like in a lot of those stories, they wrote the ending first, and they're like, "All right, figure out how to get there." How?
Yeah,
like,
and
she beat Thanos once. She beat Galactus. She
yeah,
like she
she beat
conquered
the
the Marvel-
entire Marvel universe once.
Yeah.
They kind of do that with Deadpool. Like
Absolutely.
he has his own, you know, he's going to wind his way through the entire Marvel universe and all the characters, and get into some antics or kill them all or do whatever. But they kind of do the same thing with Squirrel Girl, which I haven't read those. What's the one with the dinosaur?
Moon Girl and Devil
Moon-
Dinosaur.
Yeah, I read
Yep.
those. I like those. I thought
Yep.
those were fun.
Yeah. Well, and even just to have characters that over decades you can see people interpret them in different ways. Like there are bits of that in, I guess what I call it, like traditional literature. Like you have Pride and Prejudice, and then you have Pride and Prejudice and zombies. But the fact that like I have the is it the 1960s Challengers of the Unknown? It's terrible, but it's so great because it's terrible, and you just get this sense of like, all right, now this is what crazy looked like 60 years ago. and here they'll pop up in like the Lego Batman movie or and it's just, I love that you can take a character and keep having different interpretations of it from different people throughout time.
I think, yeah, because one writer writes a series and hangs on to it for a while.
Yeah.
Like Chris Claremont with the X-Men, that lasted so long, and like, what else could you do with these characters? Like, it's new villains, new characters, new people joining the team, that kind of stuff. You needed that new blood, I think, in there.
He also needed time to sleep, because wasn't Claremont doing like
well, that's the thing, is
6
there was
series
a
at
point
once?
where it became a cash cow, and they started like spinning off, and just they came up with the formula and just started kicking them out, and that's why the 90s, late 80s and early 90s were not so great for comics, and it almost bankrupt Marvel in the long run, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like better stories, better art, but maybe less comics. But you see what's happened is, like, the people that got started with comics like wanted to be comic book authors and writers. So I think there's more people than there was back then just doing it that were available to do it.
I think it's also more socially acceptable too to be involved in the industry. I mean, you look at what Disney and Marvel, of how they've expanded just the fan base. No one goes, oh, why would you go into that? That's a dying art form. It's, oh, wow, you're doing that too.
Yeah,
so,
that's where you go if you can't get a job as a real artist or a real, like, no.
Yeah.
Shut up, you're wrong.
Especially if you're in the technology side of it, you go there because, well, one, that's where the money is to do the cool stuff. You look at the Mandalorian sets that they were filming on with the large screen, or basically in front of the giant screen, and how cool is that?
Yeah, like green screen in the round, essentially.
Yeah.
Have you watched the entire credits for these movies? Just let them, even the boring, like, just long lists of people that it takes to make these movies nowadays. It's just insane. And it's not just like a lot of people, it's a ton of people and a ton of companies, like 12 different graphic design companies. And I follow some of these people on Twitter, and it's like, yeah, I was involved. I was the person that made this character give a thumbs up for 3 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I worked on for a year, was that little thing, that 30-second scene. Like, it just takes so much to make these movies. I think they're fantastic.
They are,
and it's
there. Yeah, and it's great to see people who are really excellent at their craft getting a chance to do that, and I think it makes me think of the Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud, where it's just like, let's break down what is unique about this particular form and what the art brings to the story, and versus what the actual lettering brings the story versus what the script brings the story. And just being able to break that down is, and then for somebody who isn't me in the industry to read that and learn about it is awesome.
I was just looking for the book that you just mentioned on my shelf back here, and I don't have that one, but I do have his other one, Making Comics by Scott.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is kind of what the book, the second book, but this is his first one. It's the second book in reverse, right? Like, that's how you make them, and then understanding is different. But I was just looking at my shelf, but I honestly got a little as I pulled these out to talk about them during the podcast, then I actually started reading them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these are great. There's a part of these that, so this is another one that I used to love, and this isn't even a comic book. This is the official handbook of the Marvel Universe.
Those
right?
are amazing. Yes.
Yeah. And so when they first did these, it's literally just like, here's literally all of our characters, right?
Yep.
And the part that I used to love is this one has Spider-Man in it, but they would actually have these little diagrams of
Yeah.
like, here's how his web shooters work. And then here's how his camera works. And it's here's Stilt Man. Here's how his stilt suit works, right? Like a diagram. What do they call those books? Like the DK books, right? Like
Yes.
Paste Pot Pete in there with his glue gun.
oh, this is the S's.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, this one is Sif to Sunspot. So Silver Surfer. Oh, this is actually great. People that are watching or listening to this aren't going to hear this. So I'll just describe, or aren't going to see this, but I'll describe it. They have a entry here for Silver Surfer, and they have a diagram of, it's SI. They have a diagram of how his surfboard works, right?
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, which is, it's a surfboard. It's just literally just a picture of a surfboard.
It's a
There's
board
no
powered by the Power Cosmic.
Yeah. And the other thing that you miss out by reading these online is like, these are all like time capsules, right? Like here's
Totally.
the back
Oh, the
of
ads. Just the
Alpha
ads in
number
those.
6. The ad, like this is the advertisement for Popeye, the video game on ColecoVision, which I remember I had one of these.
The old comics, I think, have the best ads. My brother and I still joke about Automatic Mind Command, which was this pamphlet you could order that would give you the ability to have automatic mind command. And that makes me laugh every time I hear it.
This one has an ad for become a young astronaut through NASA actually had a program. And whenever they had these comics that took place in outer space, they'd always advertise blast into space as an official young astronaut. You could send them $10. You could go to Kennedy Space Center. Yeah, these
Do
are.
you think it's too late for me to apply to that, Chad?
I can send you the address.
Perfect. Okay. I'll test that out for science.
Yeah, I'll send you the address. All you have to do is send $10
Perfect.
to NASA. Yeah. It's weird to me to see like, okay, so these are all like goofy little old school adventure tales. And then I have like one here, this about World War II from the Japanese perspective. And it's horrible.
Mhm.
And so what the range of going from, oh, here's the Avengers and Fantastic Four in outer space fighting the Skrulls, to here's the life story of this kid, this Japanese kid that fought in World War II, is like, it's literally everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you were saying, the curiosity that you get,
Yes.
like they'll bring in characters from history and they'll put them in this fantastical story. But then you're aware of that character.
Yeah.
And it's usually not Hitler, but it's somebody else. But you learn about some things and then you can pursue that. Like you pursue the technology behind these gadgets and things like that, even though that's fantasy. But then looking at how comics drive technology and comic book movies drive technology forward, and video games, and drives innovation.
This one's great. I like how they riff on each other too. So this is a Fantastic Four, but it's totally a take on Action Comics #1. So for listeners, this is a Fantastic Four issue number 291, and the cover is an absolute riff on Superman's Action Comics #1, but instead of Superman, it's She-Hulk lifting a car, and in the 30s. That's so cool. All right. Sorry, I forget that this is an audio medium. So probably holding up comic book issues to the screen is not really going to resonate with a lot of folks. But Google the comic book and the issue number, and you'll see what I'm saying.
So, are there any comic book series that you're currently reading right now that you're currently into?
And no, I stopped. Like all
What?
the best stories have been, well, kind of, not really, but kind of. Uh,
Get
it is.
out.
Um, I have a lot of catching up to do, right? So I didn't. What the movies have actually caught up to me, right? Which was for a guy like me that's grown up with this. Every single superhero movie that came out was a story that I read about 30 years ago, and I think that's kind of what made these Marvel movies so like popular. Is that like, oh, for guys like me, it's nostalgic. I'm like, oh, I never thought I would see an Iron Man big budget
Yeah.
movie. And now it's like, you just expect it. So they've all caught up with me. And now, like with Ms. Marvel, I did read the Ms. Marvel series, but like that's kind of where I ended. So I'm like, okay, now the movies, now I got to catch up again because they're going to start making movies about stuff that I don't know about. Right.
And
So,
I'm taking a different approach, and I'm waiting for the movie to come out first.
Oh.
Reason
Oh.
And the reason for that is that it kind of gives you, okay, here's the basic of what's going on. Okay, cool. I can just appreciate as its own standalone art form. I don't have any, oh, are they going to do this? Are they? You don't have that letdown of, oh, they didn't do that little part that I just loved.
Yeah.
And so I get to go through, experience it first and go, wow, that was really good. Then you go back, you read it, and you go, oh, this is even better. Here's why. And you can actually appreciate the two in a different way than I think you do if you approach it from, okay, I have all this background material. How did they interpret it? And instead, I just get to appreciate the art form that the final product they've put together as its own entity, and then come back after the fact and go, oh, okay, now I understand why they did what they did in some ways, and then question, why didn't they bring this up? Why did
So
they
what
cut
was
that?
Yeah.
what was the last example that you did that for?
Oh, geez. Put me on the spot for that one.
well, while Turpin is thinking, I will say like one of the most delightful things that I saw coming from the opposite direction
Mhm.
is there's two things. Captain America, when they brought in Batroc, the Leaper, the French guy that he fought on
Yes.
that boat,
Mhm.
that was an amazing pull that I never thought I would see in a live act. Like never
Yeah.
in a million years would I have dreamt of that. And then the other side of it too was like, I don't know if you remember in the very last, the Avengers Endgame, right? That was the second one, right? Endgame.
Yes.
Yeah.
Infinity
Hulk,
Wars before.
yeah, Hulk and Rocket and War Machine are trapped under the building, and Hulk's kind of holding it up with his back, which
Yeah.
is a direct pull from a story in there was a series called Secret Wars.
Yep.
And all
Yeah.
of the heroes are trapped under a mountain, and the Hulk is literally holding up the mountain on his back. And it was like those for me, seeing like reading these stories and kind of having these visuals memorized and then seeing them happen on screen, it's amazing. It's so, I don't know. It's hard to describe the like, oh, I remember that was from this book and
Oh,
this, blah blah blah.
it's like you said, delightful. It's like getting injected by you get the warm fuzzies, but it's like the warm fuzzies times 10. Like, oh my gosh, they did it. Um, that's the thing is like the MCU stuff, like you can tell that they are fans not of the material, um, but had a desire to kind of stick to it as much as possible.
Yeah.
Like they knew it inside and out.
Either that or they just didn't want to deal with the fans if they deviated from it.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
I need 10 deep cuts per movie, otherwise I'm not interested anymore.
The
Turpin,
fan
did you think of your
service.
example yet?
No,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
it's already forgotten.
Well, I know that I'm gonna go read Moon Knight comics, but can I wait till the series is over before I do that?
Try it
Sure.
once.
Yeah.
Try it once. See what you think.
Oh,
It's only a couple weeks.
it's only a
I mean,
couple weeks.
Otherwise, read the Warren Ellis Moon Knight collection because that was intended to be a standalone sort of anthology series anyway. So you don't have to worry about it either spoiling or tying into things.
Yeah, there's only supposed to be 6 episodes, so that's a month and a half.
Is that
Yeah.
it?
So
6?
Kyle, what are you reading in the meantime while you're deciding whether or not to read Moon Knight? What comics are you going through?
I stopped. Like I follow a character, so it's all Marvel stuff right now because I've got that unlimited subscription. So like I started with the entire like Captain Marvel, not the original dude Captain Marvel, but Carol Danvers Captain Marvel, and read that all the way through. And I guess I'm thinking there's more that have come out since then. I just finished rereading like the Jason Aaron Thor series with the female Thor. I won't tell you who that is.
Good.
'Cause I loved the mystery. I loved that concept of he's no longer worthy, can't lift the hammer. Nick Fury whispered something in his ear, and they don't tell you what he said to make Thor unworthy. And then someone else, there was like in that first episode or that first comic, they set the stage for all of these mysteries, like all these questions, like, okay, who is she? You don't know who she is. You don't know why Thor's not worthy. And that just sucks you in. It's just great storytelling. So yeah, I read that again. And I'm waiting now for Thor Love and Thunder to come out because I think it's pulling from that story arc. Yeah, the movies followed the comics, and now the comics that are coming after the movies are following the movies. Like they're taking that in as part of the canon, and working that into the stories of the comics that are coming out now to a degree.
Yeah, I'd say for certain series, definitely they're doing that.
I remember reading Alien after watching the movie
Yeah.
and thinking, wow, this book's way better. And then Alien 2 came out, and then the book came out after the movie, and I read that book, and it was like, this is just the movie written down. So, Chad, what's your take on that?
I used to read the comic book adaptions of movies sometimes, right? So, like Batman, the 88, 89 Batman movie, there was a comic book adaptation of it, and it was fine. It was okay.
That's like video game adaptions of comics are mostly just.
Yeah, those are never good.
Yeah.
Those are never, ever good. Is that true? I don't know if that's changed recently. I've heard the Guardians of the Galaxy video game is pretty great. The one that just came out. Greg Stier played it, and he said, "You gotta try this."
All right, we're gonna have to find out from Greg.
I know we should get Greg on. But
Is that PS5?
He's got a PS5. Yeah, he would have played it. On
That's
that.
too new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Newest
But
I've got is
Spider-Man,
PS3.
the Spider-Man games are pretty good, but they're like, I don't know. I'm not as good as playing video games as I used to be, because I'm like having a hard time controlling them. There's so many buttons, so many things now. Like joystick button, give me that Atari back, and watch me work. But nowadays, no, it's just too confusing.
I think that
I'm
means we need to
old.
get you some of the Lego superhero games. You can, I think in Lego, was it Lego Marvel Superheroes 2? You can play as the character Detroit Steel, which involves basically roller skating around a city as you beat up criminals. It's great.
Nice.
Are you serious?
Heroes on roller skates.
It's great.
That's
So, have you read any obscure, like rare, like comics that no one's ever heard of?
Nope.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I read a lot. there's actually like local guys. One of my old buddies, his name's Elliot Rahal, Rahal, lives in Minneapolis, writes comic books. So he's got, like, you could Google him and you can find a lot of his stuff online. He wrote a series called Cult Classic that was kind of a Stranger Things-esque whatever before Stranger Things. So I've read a lot of those. I was surprised, like, even locally in Minneapolis, St. Paul area, how many local comic book creators there are, writing, getting published. You don't have to be, felt like you used to have to be like based out of New York City. I mean, that's where Marvel and DC were. And if you didn't live in New York City, you probably weren't going to be involved in comic books. But today it seems like literally anywhere. Or Chicago. I think Chicago was in a big hub in the 70s and 80s as well. I believe that's accurate. So yes, Cult Classic. Read Cult Classic if you haven't. It's great. And it's by a local guy who's hilarious.
Cult Classic.
Yep.
Awesome. I remember it was just Marvel and DC for a while, but then, like, with Ninja Turtles, that was a different company. A lot of these
Image.
smaller comic book companies
Dark Horse
came to be. There was First Comics had a comic book called The Badger.
Okay.
And he was not all there. And he would dispense justice everywhere. Like, if you didn't fill out the check before you got in line to get groceries, then he might give you some parking lot justice. Yeah, it was a whole different type of character. And I can't find those comics anywhere, anywhere online. Yeah, but I love that comic. I only read like 5 of them, but it's always stuck with me. I wonder what happened to the Badger.
I mean, I've definitely paid more than I probably need to get collections of comics that are out of print because I want a physical copy and not a digital copy. So I think, like, the last time I did that was getting the, like, second half of Grant Morrison's Animal Man. Like, the first half was super easy to find, but apparently the second half was just, so that took some digging. But yeah, I don't think I don't think I have a stash of obscure comics. I just tend to decide that I need to read a certain series and I'll just do what I need to figure out how to get it.
Yeah.
Um,
do you have a favorite villain?
Ooh. See, now we're all quiet because we're trying to think.
I know.
Because it seemed like you had somebody else.
I absolutely love Galactus. That's like, I just want him to show up every week and try to eat the planet and be like, oh man, they sprinkled garlic everywhere. And I don't like garlic. All right, I'm out of here, but I'll be back.
I don't
But
know
just
that
the
I had
idea of this big planet eating, I don't know. I just always like Galactus stories.
Oh, that's fair. This is one of those things where I'm sure in like 10 minutes I'll think of something else. Like, the two that are coming to mind right now is I enjoy the chaos of Poison Ivy, where she's just sort of rides the line of, like, I'm bad, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm good, I'm just morally ambiguous. And then, speaking of Jason Aaron's Thor, like, the God Butcher is a great villain. Those are the two that are coming to mind. Mike, are there any that jump out to you?
Oh, I got 2 that jump out. First one is Magneto.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That's kind of the first one. And the other one is Kilgrave.
Mm.
Yeah. The Purple
You mean
Man?
the Black Panther guy?
No, he's the mind control Jessica Jones.
So in the comics, he was called the Purple Man.
Yeah.
And Jessica Jones, played by David Tennant.
Yeah. It was because
That
of David
was-
Tennant.
that-
That's true. Yep, that's a great
yeah,
one.
that first season of Jessica Jones with the Purple
The
Man was
first one, yeah.
phenomenal.
Yes.
He was so good. Yeah.
That's the only reason I was interested was because he was in it. Coming from watching him on Doctor Who, and
Yeah.
it's like okay, and then seeing the wow, what a difference on range.
Hmm.
Chad, villain?
I don't even know. I keep looking. I like villains that are easy to hate, like like villains that are just kind of like abstract, right? So like
Sure.
a nihilist, he just wants to
Mm.
make everything horrible, right? Like I get that, right? Like I sometimes want to do that.
But he's
Um,
changed, though. There's a
a
kinder,
nihilist?
gentler nihilist
Oh
now.
gosh, no, he's always just bent on, and then in Marvel they have Mephisto. It's always fun to
Mhm.
see Mephisto pop up, like literally the devil shows up in a Marvel comic books and has to fight Daredevil or something. It's awesome. I'm like, that's what it should be. I don't want to have like I don't want to think too hard about why a person is getting punched in the face by, Spider-Man or Captain America. I'm like, okay, if Captain America's punching you in the face, you did something really bad. And I don't want to have to question Captain America. Like Captain America, did you just pull a Will Smith? Did you smack him for no perfect reason? Or did you, or are you punching Hitler in the face, right? Like I can get behind that. Not to
I
say
don't
that
know. I
he's a
like the
favorite
making
villain,
you.
please.
I like questioning them in terms of, are you really the good guy? Did you really think this through? Are you really coming from the moral perspective? Or are you doing are you both just doing what you think is best? And then there's the chaos side of things where it's, no, I just like someone who's just kind of the Joker in effect of what happens when I roll the dice and, oh, look, I guess you're not going to survive now. Thanks.
The villains that are doing absolutely horrible things that think they're doing the right thing, like Thanos wanting to wipe out half of the life in the universe, and like having a totally messed up belief that is driving a horrible act of some kind. To me, is like that's just frightening.
That's why I love the stories that are like told from a villain's perspective. So like is it Azzarello's Luthor, where he tells a Superman story from the perspective of Lex Luthor. And I just find that to be it's not only engaging, and you do get, Mike, to your point, sort of the okay, who's really good or bad, but ultimately, like, I feel it does a great job of actually showing, yeah, he's bad.
He really is a jerk. Yeah.
So I feel like that you might get, Mike, what you're looking for, and Chad, what you're looking for, where there's some ambiguity, but there is an answer in the end.
I don't have to think too hard about it. Like you deserve getting punched in the nose. All right, cool.
Yeah, like if you're like Piranha, like that. Yeah, if you're in the water with Piranha, it's like, yeah, I got to get out of here. These things are bad. There's no moral compass there. There's no thought. It's just your food. I'm coming at you. Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
I don't remember.
That's okay.
I think I just am liking the stories where you kind of come away and go, wow, everything's just kind of it's not black and white, it's all gray, and nobody's really right. It's kind of the moral ambiguity of, I like those kind of things that don't resolve, that you don't get the nice clear answer, because for me, in some ways, that's basing it more in real life. It's not there's a lot of gray, at least for me. And so it's kind of it grounds them to me. Whereas if you get the really simple ones, I kind of go, well, that's too neat and clean. That would never happen.
There's I think if you haven't read it, Mike, you should read White Knight, one of the newer Batman series. That it's basically Joker comes forward and is quote unquote cured, and Batman doesn't quite know what to do with that. And so it is very much okay, can you forgive this person if they all of a sudden want to be benevolent? Or, is Batman really the one who can't let a grudge go, or is he remembering crimes that need to be atoned for? And so it's really good.
Okay.
Have you ever read a comic book about like a real person, but like in comic book form? Like, have you done that recently? Do you have a favorite? Because I know like Congressman John Lewis wrote a bunch about like the civil rights movement. No superheroes, but like those are actually pretty great.
Yes.
Those are really good.
Yeah. The Black Panther Party is another one that is a great graphic novel.
Yeah. My favorite. So this is just me. Oh, and I don't have to go far. Box Brown wrote one about Andre the Giant. And this is phenomenal. Like
it is. Okay, I haven't read it yet. It's good.
Oh gosh. It's just, I mean, the illustrations are simple. The story is, not a lot of words, because I don't think Andre ever used a lot of words, but this is like as good as it gets for me as far as like an autobiography in comic book form. That's awesome.
I don't ever want to be serious or learn anything. I just want to escape and have fun, and yeah.
That's what I'm after. Escapism.
So if it is morally ambiguous, Mike, that still gives you the escapism you're looking for?
Yeah, because it's more the kind of doing the just spinning off spiral in any direction type of, oh, that's another way to look at it, or I hadn't considered that perspective. And so it is more just trying to give things for me to consider in general life of, oh, well, what happens if there is a benevolent AI and then suddenly gets connected to the internet and decides to go crazy? And what do you do? Why would it go crazy? Would it go crazy? Would it fit? I mean,
how would you unit test?
Benevolent AI? How would you unit test Ultron?
He just gets in everything, and then like, how do you get him? How do you remove Ultron completely?
Destroy the universe and start over.
You've watched What If?
Yeah.
It's like a really bad Bitcoin miner you get infected with. Like, how do you get rid of it? It's worse than Ultron.
That's going to be a topic for one of our tech podcasts. How do you
unit test Ultron?
How would you unit test Skynet, or how would you unit test Ultron, or all of it?
I love it.
That'd be great.
Do we have any actual villains, do you think, trying to build Ultron right now?
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, but they all got hit by the Log4j vulnerability, so they all got set back. So we don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
I think the bigger question is, what if they've already succeeded? How would you know if it's truly that powerful? Because it's, think about it, you can get in, control everything on the net, all your perspectives, what you're introduced for. Sure, you have people, but people are fun to manipulate if you know the right buttons to push.
Well, it sounds like Mike Turpin is turning into a supervillain right now.
Yeah, it happened. We saw it happen.
People are fun to manipulate? Holy crap.
Well, just
in a story?
No, because it goes, I would mess it up, so I don't even try. I just know I'm too flawed to even approach it. Like, it doesn't take me long in any thought experiment to go, nope, I'd fail right there. Okay, well.
Yeah, the more I dig into like cybersecurity, the more I see kind of what the buttons are. To me, you see the social engineering side of things. Like, yeah, it is easy to manipulate people. You give them a sense of urgency. You rush them into something, you scare them, do those things. So I think we have that. The evil is happening, but also the good is happening. There's
Totally. And if we did have a Skynet or an Ultron or a something that was controlling us, like we'd also there'd need to be something that makes it worthwhile. Like what's the prize? Is there then the secret technology to destroy Mars that they're influencing the whole world to get like
Moon.
what's the end goal?
Some of
That's-
it's
I
just
always-
to do it because you can. There's a
Sure.
lot of that in technology. You know,
Totally.
they didn't. What is it? The Jurassic Park line. They didn't stop to ask if you should. You know, you were so
Yes.
quick to ask if you could. You didn't stop to think if you should. And I think there's still way too much of that in our tech. And I'm guilty of that myself. So can I build this Kubernetes cluster on a Raspberry Pi that's running with my own SSL CA cert internally? Well, should I really be doing this? No. Am I going to do it anyways? Absolutely.
I've seen your rack setup, man. I think you didn't ask yourself the should question a lot. No, I'm
Yeah.
teasing. Because
No,
that's
you're absolutely right. Same with the lights that I put on the rack. I didn't need to do it. I was like, I'm going to do it because it looks pretty.
and it does. It looks gorgeous.
awesome. Well, thank
think
you,
the
Mike,
takeaway-
for joining
yeah.
us.
The
Any
takeaway is just
takeaways
read more
quick?
comics.
Yeah, great stories. You don't have to be a kid.
Mm-mm.
Great storytelling.
Now you
Yeah.
got to do more podcasts on tech and on board games and on Legos.
Okay.
Done.
We could absolutely pull you in. Turpin, I want to see. Did you build any of the sets that I gave you, or are they still?
I have. Well, I have with my son, yeah.
Oh, awesome. That's sweet. Yes.
Okay.
We'll do a Lego.
I look forward to listening to your Lego Tech podcast.
Oh, then you can get into Mindstorms and all that stuff.
Oh my gosh, we are going
Robotics.
to build Ultron out of Legos, so it won't be,
What I
Gotta
just
start
see,
somewhere.
someone got a set that they can spin a gear at 100,000 RPM in Legos. I don't know if you know how fast 100,000 RPM is.
Faster than a Dremel.
Oh,
Well,
wow, it's
no, I
cool.
mean, that's how fast my head spins when I hear somebody opening a grain belt. So I know exactly.
All right. Well, thanks,
right.
everybody. I think that's our time. Say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
I'll shut her down.
So long.
Goodbye.
Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.